I don't know how other people are going to feel, but if you ask me, I think this was the best episode of Alien Earth so far. And honestly, if you just expanded this another 45 minutes, it could have been a movie. Like forget the show. Like this solid contain bottle episode could have been its own Alien movie. And I loved a lot of the ideas that were happening here. And the biggest thing for me is that I've been saying since episode 1, I really do think Morrow is the most interesting character of this show. And this is an episode essentially all about him. This is the backstory of what happened on the ship before it crashed on Earth in Prodigy territory. We get to see everything that led up to that event. We get to see the aliens escaping. We get to see the body count pile up. And we get to see what Morrow was doing throughout this entire process and a little bit more insight into the kind of person slash cyborg that he is. Before I talk about anything that happens in the episode, once again, I just gotta prop up the set design, the way that this show looks, the practical effects of most of the alien stuff that happens here. I am just endlessly impressed with how authentic the show looks, and I literally just rewatched the first Alien yesterday because actually my girlfriend decided that she wants to watch all the Alien movies, so I'm like, yes. She's never seen them before. So we rewatched the first Alien, and watching that last night and watching the new episode of Alien Earth today, I'm just endlessly impressed by how this show looks, man. And I really, I don't know the name of the people that are behind the production design, set design, costumes, all of that, the lighting inside the ships, the way that the corridors look. But I think they did a phenomenal job. Also, this show consistently makes me want to replay Alien Isolation, especially with the tension of knowing that the xenomorph was loose on the ship, but you didn't know when and where it was going to strike. If it was crawling through the air ducts, you just knew it was out there somewhere. And it was this looming sense of dread for about half the episode, just knowing that at any point in time, the xenomorph could show up and off one of the characters. And that's just the one alien creature on top of the other alien species that we have in this episode that also get to run amok and showcase a little bit more than we've seen from them before. So yeah, I'm just super impressed with this episode, but let's get into some of the finer details here. There was a deliberate sabotage of the ship that threw it into a course where now it is going to be a missile heading towards Earth where it crashes that we see in episode 1. Something did this. It was off camera. Morrow's trying to figure it out. Meanwhile, while that happened, a facehugger was able to get out and onto one of the characters here. And as of yet, all of the specimens on the ship, they don't really know exactly what they do. So any intention that Weyland-Yutani might have had to go out and get the creature for a specific reason, even if they did have that information, they didn't display that to the crew, and the crew is still actively studying them even as these horrific events begin to go down. Most of the crew of the ship is still in cryosleep. They seem to have the most important members awake now. Morrow trying to figure things out. The captain that is now currently in charge was the woman that we saw get killed in the first episode, where Morrow sealed the door shut and we saw her get ripped apart by the xenomorph. And in that first episode, I was kind of theorizing, is this like an Ash situation where the crew was expendable as long as they get the asset back to Earth? Did Morrow himself sabotage the crew? So we get all those answers in this episode. So she's there. There are two maintenance people. There's like the more seasoned, older veteran maintenance guy and one that's an apprentice. That the only negative I have of this whole episode is that the apprentice maintenance guy was shown to be like the biggest dumbass ever. Like he didn't even know the difference between the words biology and geology. And I just feel like that was a little bit exaggerated. But anyways, minor nitpick aside. So they're there. There was the one character that I thought was a synthetic, but it seems like the xenomorph killed him so maybe he's just a weird dude, but he might have been a synthetic. I'm not really sure. I don't know if they would need another synthetic on board if Morrow was kind of serving that slot, being the cyborg character that's devoted to the company. And then there's the biologist that was working on the little leeches, as well as the guy that was going to perform the surgeries and stuff. There might have been another character in there too that I'm forgetting, but a very small group of the crew was awake to try to solve this problem. And Morrow is basically playing the detective here, trying to go through all the video archival footage, trying to interview everybody individually, and he's very much a proficient at what he does, a man on a mission, a guy that's going to look at every single aspect, every single possible outcome to try to narrow down who is the person that betrayed them. So it was not Morrow. Morrow did not betray the crew, but at the same time, he is the one that, explicitly states that the priority is to get the specimens back to Weyland-Yutani. And he says this outright. It's not an Ash situation where he kept that information hidden until Ripley found out. Morrow is straight up saying, like, I don't care. We're going to get these assets back to Earth. That's the priority. And he finds himself at odds with the woman that's in charge. And again, I apologize. I have a hard time remembering character names until I've heard them a bunch of times. And these characters don't stick around very long, so I don't remember their names. But the woman that's essentially in charge, the one that we saw get killed in the first episode, she butts heads with Morrow. Well, it's more like Morrow is butting heads with her, and she just isn't really able to make a decision on what she wants to do. Her authority is kind of falling on deaf ears because she's in a situation that is unpredictable. Like, it's an impossible situation because you don't know what these creatures can do. You don't know the extent of the amount of danger you're in, and people's lives are at stake. Like, do you do the surgery? Do you not do the surgery? Do you try to remove the face hugger? Do you put him back in cryosleep? There's all these decisions to be made, and she's just not prepared to make them. And you see that tension build up between her and Morrow throughout the course of the entire episode, until he gets to the point where he's like, I'm taking over, I'm in charge. And then when she winds up being the last survivor, he pretty much seals the door shut because at that point he's had it with her, doesn't care, and pretty much figures she's going to die anyways. And, so it is sort of a betrayal, but at the same time, it's like the entire episode, he was trying to figure things out, and he just doesn't have the sympathy for her like that. He doesn't have the empathy to care if she lives or dies at that point. To him, it seems like, to me, from the point of view of Morrow, she kind of sealed her own fate already, and so he's just kind of leaving her to her own fate. And we get more insight into the leech sort of tick creatures, the ones that latched on to the rescue team in episode 2, drank their blood and like blew up and got all bloated like a giant tick. They are more intelligent than we gave them credit for to begin with, and we see a lot more from the eyeball creature. I think is it the T Oculus? Am I pronouncing that right? It's got a specific name. I just keep calling it the eyeball creature, but we get a lot more from both of them, which I think was, other than the final 10 minutes, the highlight of the episode, because you have the scientists doing the experiment on the tick creatures, giving them no food for a while and then introducing a dead rat to see if they will feed on something that is not currently living if they are hungry enough, just performing a routine experiment. While she's doing this and writing down her little bits of information, one of the tick creatures is able to crawl up to the top of the container, reach its little insect arms out, and throw open the hatch in order to escape. So even though they just look like little bugs and they're these little tick things, they are intelligent enough to recognize what is keeping them in the container. And the moment that she takes her eyes off them, they crawl up there and try to get out. And it comes down, and there's this moment where she puts this bottle of water on the table. She's not paying attention, and the little tick creature crawls up the bottle of water and literally like poops out its larva into the water. It's fucking disgusting. And now you have this other element. You have this, Hitchcockian, like, bomb is gonna go off at some point. You know that the creatures are in the water. Is she going to drink it? Is somebody else going to end up drinking it? Is it just going to be a red herring? We don't know. We just know that little poop larvae are currently in the bottle of water. Also, while this is happening, the eyeball creature is watching this go down, and there's this really interesting moment where the eyeball creature starts to use its little tentacles to bang on the glass to try to get the scientist's attention. And in that moment, I'm thinking, is it trying to warn her about the tick creatures coming down and getting in her water? Like, is it trying to tell her, hey, look over there? And if that's the case, why? And if it has enough intelligence to do this, then what's it going to mean when it gets into an intelligent creature? Well, that does happen later in the episode, and I have a couple of theories about it. I don't think that the eyeball creature is like lawful good or anything like that. I really do think that it's looking out for itself. So, like, I don't think the eyeball creature was trying to protect her so that she's safe. I think it was trying to make sure that nothing gets in its way. Because the eyeball creature, I imagine, is just itching to get inside of a host. And it doesn't want that compromised. And so if it's looking at the scientist as a host and something else is going to come kill it, it's going to be like, yo, no, like that's mine. I want that to be mine. Because obviously the eyeball creature doesn't have a regard for human life, because later in the episode, we do see it get inside of one of the characters, of the older, more seasoned mechanic character. So it doesn't seem like it's not trying to protect human life, not trying to preserve human life. I think it's just trying to preserve its own assets. Like, it views the humans as something that it can use, in the same way that the humans are looking at the alien creatures as something that they can use, that they can study. I think the intelligence of these creatures is that they view humans in kind of the same way that we are viewing them, and probably goes back to the opening of episode 1, where Wendy is commenting about the scorpion inside of the cage. Like, do you think the scorpion's scared? But if the scorpion had the opportunity, it would also attack. And, you know, if the roles were reversed, the scorpion wouldn't care. And it's just sort of like, it's all about survival. It's all about biology. You know, it's all about doing what you can to continue to survive, continue to procreate, continue to continue living, you know, and whatever you have to do that. The tick creatures aren't doing anything evil per se, you know, they are just doing what they do to survive. And to us, it's horrifying and disgusting and terrifying, but to them, it's just life. And I think that's the same thing with the eyeball creature. And I also think that's the same thing with the humans doing the experiments on the alien creatures. Eyeball is also able to break out of its own container, pushing on the glass that for some reason wasn't securely put into place. I guess the scientist was in a hurry. I don't know. I don't really care about that one. To me, that's going to be one of those things I don't really think about, just like Kane putting his face in front of the egg in the first movie, or the scientist in Prometheus going to touch the snake. Sometimes you just need a little push to get the horror started, all right, at the expense of character intelligence. Like, it happens, okay? So, you know, the eyeball creature gets free also. So we have all of these alien creatures getting free. But what I really like about it is that each of them did it on their own. So it does seem like the facehugger had a little bit of help to get free, that happened during the fire that broke out, I think. Regardless, what I think is cool about it is that it's sort of like the life finds a way sort of thing. Like all of them are going to find their own means of escape, because these are intelligent creatures that we don't understand that have something to do. So the ticks find a way to escape. The eyeball finds a way to escape. The xenomorph bursts out of somebody's chest. We don't see it happen, but we know the xenomorph is loose on the ship somewhere. So we have a variety of alien creatures that are all escaping on their own, while also having somebody that sabotaged the mission, and just everything is going haywire. Oh yeah, and we have the little leeches inside the water bottle that somebody is going to drink. Now, expanding on Morrow's character a little bit, there is a moment where he's going through some of his stuff, and we realize that he had a daughter. But we see also that she has died, and he's been on this mission for a very, very long time. Like, remember, the Yutani that he knows is the grandmother of the current Yutani in charge. So that was his last tether to his life, his humanity. So if his daughter is gone, then really the only thing that matters is the mission to him. He's kind of devoted himself to doing this thing, which shows why he's so adamant and determined to get the specimens where they need to go, and why he now has this extreme vendetta against Prodigy and Cavalier, because we do find out that it was Cavalier himself that convinced somebody on the crew to create the ship crash so that it would land in his territory and that he could obtain the specimen. So yes, This was theorized, and it's absolutely true that the entire time Cavalier knew exactly what was on the ship and that he was going to get his hands on it before Weyland-Yutani did, and that's what he had happened. He specifically designed somebody on the ship to sabotage it so that it would crash in his territory so that he could send his experimental team in to gather the specimens, and that's exactly what happened. And what I liked about this too was all of the different moving pieces here. There are so many options on the chessboard of moves that could happen in this episode, and you didn't know what was going to go first, what was going to be the biggest impact. The water bottle finally gets drunk by the younger mechanic, and he starts vomiting up blood, gets sent to the surgery bay, and they attempt to open him up and do surgery on him because the captain that's currently in charge, again, she doesn't really know what she wants to do. She's in an insanely stressful situation. She's like, go do it. Just do the surgery. Try to save his life. Do whatever you can. And similar to the original Alien, and I was, when we were watching it last night, I said, one of the reasons why I love the original Alien so much is because this is before we were so comfortable and familiar with the xenomorph, and the thing that makes it scary to me in the film is that the human characters are always like 10 steps behind of discovering what the alien creature can do. They try to cut it off and they realize it has acid blood, and then they don't realize that it's going to pop out of somebody's chest, and then they don't realize that it's going to grow up in less than a day. And, it's like every step of the way they are behind the curve because they just don't understand this creature. And a similar theme is shown in this episode where they go to remove the ticks, and as they grab them, the ticks emit this like gas that is apparently poisonous or at least harmful, and it causes the two characters to pass out and just like seize up and die. And so like we didn't know they had that defense mechanism, but now we do, but now it's too late. It doesn't matter. Like, we weren't quick enough on the draw to be able to understand these creatures to the point where everyone just starts to die off. Oh yeah, that reminds me. There was another character that Morrow takes with him to hunt the guy down that betrayed them. They get into a gunfight on the ship, which is pretty cool, and also, very claustrophobic, where they're stuck in those traditional alien spaceship hallways where there's not really a lot of room to move around and shoot. In order to get out of the line of fire, Morrow opens the door to the science bay where the eyeball creature was, so the eyeball creature escapes. The other guy gets shot in the head, and then it's Morrow versus the guy that betrayed them. Morrow ends up killing him using one of his cyborg blade appendages, which is pretty nifty, but at the end of the day, it's far too late for anything to really matter at this point. The ship is going to crash, and both mechanics are now dead because the older mechanic has now been attacked by the eyeball creature that has crawled inside of him. And so, yes, we finally get to see the eyeball creature inside the body of a human. And I was very, very curious what this was going to imply. Like, would he be able to speak? Would it be able to communicate? Would it be able to assume his identity or assume his memories or anything like that, right? It doesn't seem to be able to speak. It does make noise. It makes sort of like guttural sounds. So maybe given more time, it would be able to figure out how to speak. So it seemed like it was trying to, or maybe it was speaking its own way. Either way, very interesting stuff. And I'm sure that's not the last time we'll see it get into the body of a human. But while that's going on, the current captain of the ship comes face to face with the xenomorph. We finally see it. Amazing practical effects, guy in a suit. But when she starts to run, it does turn to CGI, but it looks really cool. I like how it gets down on all fours and starts crawling and running. Kind of similar to Alien 3 in a way. Chasing her throughout the corridors until it runs in to the eyeball creature inside of the mechanic. And this part was wild because the eyeball alien actually does straight up try to throw hands with the xenomorph. It attacks. But once again, I don't think that it's trying to protect the humans because obviously it just killed a human to get inside of the body. I think it's just trying to upgrade. I think it's one of two things. I think either one, it knows what the alien or what the xenomorph is in a way, or at least can sense it, and so it's just trying to take it down, knowing that it's this apex predator that's going to take all of these viable candidates away from it, that's going to kill all the people that it needs to get inside of. So I don't think it's protecting the humans in any way. If anything, it's protecting its own interest. That's my theory anyway. Or the second reason would be, obviously, it's trying to get into the body of the xenomorph, which doesn't have eye sockets. So it's not going to be able to, but it might be looking for eye sockets. It might be looking for some way to get inside of the xenomorph. So seeing the xenomorph have to fight this creature, it's a creature inside the body of a human fighting the xenomorph, which is a creature that spawned from the body of a human. Yeah. And they have a pretty good, legitimate fight scene, especially with the effects that they had and mostly having the xenomorph be a guy in a suit. It takes the eyeball creature jumps on top of it, tries to like wrestle it to the ground. Xenomorph uses its tail to stab it multiple times. And then you get the creature coming out and crawling around. And like, it was just a really, really cool idea, and to see the aliens, the two creatures at odds with one another, was a fun little bit to throw in the episode, and I really, really enjoyed where that could go, and I'm sure it's not the last time we'll see it since the eyeball creature is still around. But anyways, this leads into what we did see in episode 1, where the captain is running to Morrow, who seals the door shut. He's had it with her bullshit, leaves her to the vices of the alien, and goes to protect his own ass as the ship crashes. No way to stop the ship crash at this point, so he just lets it happen. And this explains why, once it did, he went out to try to secure the assets. He went to try to capture the alien because he's trying to bring it back to Weyland-Yutani. So that's his whole thing. It's sort of like he has nothing left to live for. After the passing of his daughter. Now it's all a matter of principle. It's that this guy, Cavalier, sabotaged the mission. He's the one that put the guy up to it. He's the one that wanted these creatures. And so now it's more than just trying to get the aliens back. It's Morrow saying, I'm going to take this guy down. And he literally has no other distraction. There's no reason why he won't. Short of Morrow getting killed himself, he has made a conviction. He has drawn a line in the sand. The only scene in this episode that we get that is not flashback technically is the final scene. Morrow is talking to Yutani, saying that, he is going to basically take the war to Cavalier himself. So he's probably going to get armed up in some way. He's already asked slightly in the last episode to get a human near a facehugger. So if he goes in there and takes out, if he can take out everybody, but then just get that, that asset, that person with the facehugger on them or the person with the chest burster inside of them, I don't know if he's going to be able to get all of the alien creatures. He's probably going to want to. He's going to attempt to, but I think that that's sort of his ace in the hole, basically. Like, if I can at least get that, if somebody gets infected and I can bring them back with me, that's at least something. That's at least one of the creatures, the most important, the most powerful of them all. So I'll bring that back. And in the meantime, I'm going to wipe out, Cavalier and probably everybody else around him too. So there's that. Now, we don't get any information on what's happening with Wendy or the other characters. This was a pure bottle flashback episode. So we get basically the prequel to the series in this episode, but we don't know what's going on with Wendy still, where she was sort of able to communicate and calm down the chest burster from the end of episode 4. So that has to be touched on, and we have to see if Morrow is really going to be able to convince Slightly to bring Wendy's brother to the facehugger. And then there's also a bunch of other stuff going on, like the eyeball creature and what Kirsch is going to decide to do. So a lot of great things happening here. I do know that this series is only going to be 8 episodes long, which is a little disappointing that we technically only have 3 episodes left now. But as a good halfway point, as a good reset, as a good little small contained episode, I really do think that you could have just made this episode into a movie and it would have worked. My favorite episode so far, by far, of Alien Earth, but I'll be curious to hear what other people think about it. But I enjoyed it a lot, and I'm excited to see where things go. So leave all your thoughts, theories, ideas about episode 5 down below, what you think is going to happen next. Thanks as always for watching, guys. I do appreciate it. Please give the video a like and a comment. Share it if you want to. Help it out in the algorithm. Could use the help on the channel right now, so every little bit goes a long way. If you want to support the channel deeper, I do have a Patreon, channel memberships. Even $1 a month really, really helps me out. Other than that, everything is linked down below in the description where you can follow me. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll talk to you next week.